But our strength is with the grassroots. We, the people, the ones that are working and building up our communities, raising the next generation. That's where the strength of America lies, and your lawmakers know it. The key is to be coordinated and organized in our actions to have the best impact.
So tonight we have with us Rebekah Warwick, who is with Heritage Foundation, Heritage Action for America. She comes up from Texas. She drove up today with her beautiful little assistant, Gwendolyn. And she's going to speak to us tonight. Her topic is Advancing Conservative Ideas from District to D.C. Do we need more conservative ideas across the country? Rebekah's been with Heritage for a little over 7 years, going on 8 years now? 8 years? Okay, and she's over kind of this interesting central state area. I have to read off the states that she covers. She serves Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Colorado, and then up to Wyoming and Montana. You heading up to Montana anytime soon?
They're trying to get me up there. I don't know though.
I think I'd wait until about June.
A little too cold right now.
Yeah, a little too cold right now. So if you would please give a good 912 welcome for Rebekah, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, Lori, and good evening, everybody. My name is Rebekah Warwick. I'm with Heritage Action. This is my intern, Gwendolyn. Please direct any and all complaints to her. I am sure she'll write them down legibly, and I will get back to you. So like Lori said, I'm with Heritage Action. I actually met Lori a little over a year ago almost when I came up for the first time with Heritage Action. So my territory is kind of weird because I actually started in Colorado when I was still in college, actually started with Heritage Action. And then I married an Army man. We moved around a lot, and we made our way to Texas 4 years ago when we left the military, and now he works in manufacturing. So he likes to say that he served America, now he builds America. So eventually it's probably gonna be on a billboard somewhere with his name on it eventually. But so a little bit about me. My first political entrance into the world was I was put in a Bush Cheney 2000 t-shirt when I was 7 years old and walked with my parents. I had a Bush Cheney button I wore to school every day. I'm not sure how much my public school teachers liked that, but I wore it every day because I thought it was really cool because it was a button. I was 7 years old. Pro-life issues is why I really stuck with the conservative movement. My parents are strong Christians, and so I was very much raised in the sanctity of life, and that every person, born and unborn, is made in the image of God. And so that was really drew me into the conservative movement. Joined the Tea Party when it first started in 2009 outside of St. Louis, where I was living at the time with my parents. Kind of kept up with it. Went to school in Lakewood, Colorado at a small Christian school called Colorado Christian University, where I majored in history and political science. I'm kind of surprised sometimes my parents let me do that because it wasn't like I was really getting any sort of major skill to enter the workforce, but they let me do it. And you know what? The Lord ended up placing me here with Heritage Action before I graduated school. I had done some state political work on campaigns, as well as working for the Senate Majority Whip for the Republicans in Colorado. So I got a taste of the sausage making. Never thought I'd be in politics for so long, but sometimes the Lord just really pushes you through a door and then slams it shut and says, you are here for this reason, for this time. And I couldn't be happier to be working for Heritage Action, have my beautiful family. I have an older daughter who is much more coordinated than this one. So her name is Ruth. She's with her dad right now. So as I'm sure y'all are aware, there's a thing called COVID happening, which very much affects how preschools, pre-Ks, schools are opened or not opened. So I want to say thank you for allowing my intern to join me this evening. That's enough about me. You're not here for me. You're here to learn about what the heck is Heritage Action. Why did Rhonda and Lori have me come down or up? So I'm always going down in Texas, but I'm up in Oklahoma. Up to Oklahoma. So real quick background for those of you who aren't aware, we are the sister of the Heritage Foundation. So I think all of y'all probably know what that is. So great conservative think tank. It's been around for it'd be our 48th 48th year this year at the Heritage Foundation, and they are a phenomenal organization coming up with timely research and policy solutions to the kind of big questions of our time when it comes to how do we solve things like immigration, healthcare, et cetera. What are the conservative ideas that exist? Because they do exist. There's not just some big question mark about what to do. The foundation has put together a lot of research, analysis, data to help educate members of Congress and the public at large about what can we do to solve these problems. What happened was during the Obamacare fight, so back in like 08, 09, 10, the foundation was there looking at their strengths and saying, hey, we need to get beyond Washington, D.C. with our research, with our analysis, and take this really get this in the hands of the people to be the ones holding Congress accountable. Because as a 501c3, the Heritage Foundation cannot go to your lawmaker and say, you should vote no on this bill, or you should vote yes on this bill because they're prohibited because of their C3 status. And that was really why Heritage Action was born, to kind of be the teeth behind those policy ideas, to take that conservative vision cast by the Heritage Foundation and make it a reality. So Heritage Action was born during the Obamacare fight, started in 2 states, Pennsylvania and North Carolina, with about 100 activists that we call Sentinels. And now 11 years, almost 12 years later, we are in all 50 states. We have 8 regional coordinators. I am one of them. And we work with over 30,000 Sentinels, along with over 2 million grassroots activists, to alert you about what is going on in Congress each and every day, what are members up to, what's the strategy that we're putting together to make sure that we're speaking as one voice as the conservative movement to our lawmakers. I say this all the time. When I used to work at the state capitol in Denver, my job was answering the phones and checking the email, checking voicemail. And there's a difference between getting 500 phone calls about 500 different things and 500 phone calls about one thing. And that's really the impetus of Heritage Action, is we put together a strategy of what bills are coming up, what can we have an impact on as conservatives, and then get that information to you and say, here's what's going on. You are the ones that can bring this home. Like, we have our own lobbying team in Washington, D.C., and they are awesome. We call them our anti-lobbying lobbyists because we don't do endorsements, we don't give money. We go into offices and say, you should do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. But our strength is with the grassroots. We, the people, the ones that are working and building up our communities, raising the next generation. That's where the strength of America lies, and your lawmakers know it. The key is to be coordinated and organized in our actions to have the best impact. So we did it through a couple different ways. So we identify issues. We have a scorecard at heritageaction.com. You can go there, and I'll go over it in a little bit further on in my presentation. We alert members of Congress about what bills we are planning to key vote and why. So we always give an explanation for our policy positions. There's no gotchas in there. Sometimes lawmakers have to make it seem like it is. That is not the case. You are alerted, as well as we alert all of our grassroots activists and Sentinels, so you know what our position is and why it's so. And we also do, with Sentinels, is we ask you, what are you seeing? What's coming up that maybe we're missing? A few years ago, we just had this last year. Y'all know the Draft Our Daughters Amendment, right? Draft Our Daughters. That was in the NDAA. They got it stripped out finally, which was really good. But like 5-6 years ago, a Sentinel who was a Marine, and she had served in combat, she said, hey, this amendment's coming up, and this idea is getting purchased in Congress. That's a very bad idea. And this isn't for really anybody had ever thought about it, but she was a Sentinel, and she came to us and said, you guys need to be prepared to fight on this. And because of her, we were ready for that amendment, and we've been ready for it each year to fight back on it and push back and educate lawmakers that strengthening our military does not mean putting women on the front lines to get shot. That is not what strengthening our military is to put our women in the draft. So that's just one example of how Sentinels are also people that we rely upon as we look at the issues that are facing America. So a few things that Heritage Action's been focused on. I want to kind of give you a little taste about how we do things. At Heritage Action, we focus on multiple policies, as does the Heritage Foundation. Every Monday at 4:30 p.m., we do a Sentinel strategy call. We go over the issues, take questions, and plot out our strategy for that week, that month, that year. So I'm going to give you a taste about what's been currently on our Sentinel strategy call. Election integrity has probably been the #1 issue For a long time, even prior to 2020, I think we always want our elections to be secure, to be fair. One citizen, one vote, am I right? So prior to 2020, Heritage Action was basically just federally focused. We focused on what's happening with our lawmakers in Washington, D.C. We didn't really dabble in the states. But during 2020, we actually started recruiting poll workers and poll watchers. We walked in Georgia for the Senate runoffs. That was my first time walking around Georgia, and oh my gosh, the workout. I don't know if y'all been to Atlanta, the suburbs. It is just hills like this. My calves were on fire after 3 days. And during that time, we're just like, hey, we really need to be more engaged at the state level because lawmakers also need that help. I mean, at Heritage Action, how we think about accountability with our federal lawmakers is we're there to help them see the light or make them feel the heat. You know, we're here to provide encouragement, but also hold them accountable when they don't do the right thing or take that bad vote. And our state lawmakers also need that same encouragement and accountability. So in 2021, we launched Save Our Elections. So we decided to get ourselves in the state level and say, how can we help lawmakers pass bills that will strengthen the integrity of their elections? So we launched that in 8 states, including in Texas. And we had some great successes in Texas, Arizona, Georgia, Florida. We're still working on other states as well, like in Wisconsin, Michigan. Arizona is still doing more this next legislative session to further the integrity of our elections, especially ahead of the midterms. But also just recently, this kind of got buried because of Christmas. Literally the week of Christmas, we dropped, the Heritage Foundation dropped their election integrity scorecard, scoring all 50 states on their election laws. So Hans von Spakovsky, I don't know if you'll know that name or not, he is the head elections expert at the Heritage Foundation. He is constantly on all the news programs talking about how to secure our elections and how the left wants to just totally get rid of any sort of security or integrity in our electoral process. So this was a year-long research project for him where he read through state statutes, state laws. He talked with secretaries of state as well as elected officials to make sure that we were putting the scorecard together correctly. It is a live scorecard, so as states would hopefully improve their elections, it will get a better score. So you'll see how we do it, 1 through 10, 11 to 20, 21 through 30, et cetera. Just because the number one, so like Georgia is technically ranked number 1, their score is only like an 80% when you actually go deeper into the scorecard. So don't look at that 1 through whatever and think, oh, number 1, that means they're perfect. There is always room for improvement to secure our elections. Sorry, honey. Oklahoma is ranked 17th. So still pretty high up, but there's work to do. So this is just a snapshot of how we scored. So we looked at voter ID implementation, accuracy of voter registration lists, absentee ballot management, vote harvesting, trafficking, access of election observers, verification of citizenship, identification for voter assistance, vote counting practices, election litigation procedures, restriction of same registration, restriction of automatic registration, and restriction of private funding of election officials or government agencies, aka Zuckbucks. So I don't have as much time to go through all of this. I do know when I was looking over the scorecard, so some of the issues or loopholes that we saw with our scorecard looking at Oklahoma law is, for example, for voter ID, you don't have to have a photo ID to vote. You have that voter identification card. And so from our Heritage Foundation's perspective, as photo ID is the most secure because you have that face with the picture. So take that as you will. So again, you all know your state better. So this is just our analysis based on what we think as best practices for states. For absentee ballot management, that went with voter ID isn't required for a mail-in ballot. So when you mail that in, there's no voter ID required. States like Georgia and Texas both just added voter ID to their mail-in ballots, where you provide your driver's license number or a social security number to, again, like I said, this is who I am. And that way there's actually more security for your ballot because it's a lot harder to fake a driver's license number than it is a signature. So again, you can go to saveourelections.com or you can go to heritage.org/election scorecard. And you can click each of these. You can see how we evaluated the Oklahoma's election laws, the statute cited, so how do we glean that information? So we'll say, oh, it's cited in this statute. So for example, for voter registration, verification of citizenship, I guess in Oklahoma, while it's allowed for your state to cross-reference with Social Security Administration for death certificates, it's very questionable if there's actually enforcement and follow-through on that. So sometimes there's just a good law on the books, but it's more like you can, not a you must do this. You must verify, these lists. You must do this. And so again, you can open these up at saveourelections.com. We also have model legislation there as well on all of these topics for you to take to your lawmaker. This is public information. We are here to help provide that at Heritage Action. So we are really excited about this effort. We plan to continue our state advocacy on election laws through this year, next year, et cetera, as long as it takes to make sure that our elections are secure. The biggest thing that we all can do in this room, and I think I just saw Rhonda walk in, so I'm sure she's gonna be working on this for your elections, is being a poll worker. The silver bullet of election integrity is you, which sounds so cheesy, but I don't care. Because you know what, you can have the best laws on the books, but if you don't have people who are going to uphold those laws working the elections, then what's the point? So it is so important that we as conservatives, we go work the elections or we watch the elections, we do what we can to ensure that there is security and fairness and integrity throughout the process. Even today, so President Joe Biden, he's really been complaining a lot because he can't get his voting rights legislation passed, and I'll be talking about that in a second. And I just watched this Fox News clip, and it was kind of mind-blowing because he literally said the quiet part out loud. And I can send this to Rhonda so she can send y'all if you have an email or Facebook page. Literally, President Joe Biden said that he's upset at state legislatures passing election reform laws for the integrity of their elections because he literally says not because they're changing who gets to vote, but who gets to count the votes. I'm not even kidding you. Rhonda, I will get her that video so she can send to all of you because I'm sure she has everybody's emails in this room. I'm not kidding you. The left doesn't care about voting access. They care about who's in charge of the elections because process is policy. So we need to make sure that as conservatives, we are involved in that process from crafting good laws, seeing good laws passed, and then working our elections to make sure that there's follow through. So that's gonna lead me to what's happening right now. But Mr. Hearns, Stafford, mentioned this already about what's happening in DC, so he kind of stole my thunder, but I will forgive him. Oh my gosh, guys, this has been the #1 priority of the left since they took over, and it makes me kind of giggle sometimes, like how much conservatives have stopped this. Like, y'all, this has been an uphill battle every single day that you have been winning. And not just in stopping this from, getting across the finish line in Congress, but more so is that the American people agree with us on things like voter ID. A majority of Americans want safer, secure elections. They don't want what the left is trying to give them on elections. So what's been happening is there's been a multitude of bills proposed the last year and a half. You had HR 1, I think you all know that one, the For the People Act. We call it the For the Politicians Act, which has that 6-to-1 public matching fee. So we would pay for candidates and political incumbents to run for your election. Don't want that. There was also HR 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which would weaponize the DOJ to basically do pre-clearance for every state. So if a state decided, hey, we're going to pass voter ID, the DOJ could say, no, you can't, and that'd be that. So it completely federalized our elections. And then there was most recently Senate Bill 2747, the Freedom to Vote Act. We call it the Freedom to Cheat Act, which was basically HR 1 light, but really wasn't that light comparatively. Now, coming up on MLK Day, because they want to use that symbolism of Martin Luther King, because they're trying to take what was a man who talked about equality before the law and equality of every human being, and use that for their own partisan gamesmanship, because they're just trying to rig everything for them, for their power. So they're combining basically these 3 bills into a brand new one. which has just terrible stuff all around. So ban state voter ID. It's going to require require states to implement things like same-day voter registration. So you can just show up to vote and no one can verify because there's no time. Like there's a reason, there's a process when it comes to registering to vote. So someone could theoretically go vote 4 or 5 times same day because there's nothing on the books anywhere from this person until that day. You also would restrict the ability of states to verify the eligibility of voters, require states to allow online voter registration not tied to any existing state record of an individual, require states to automatically register individuals to vote from state and federal databases, such as DMV, which could allow for multiple registrations of the same individual. They could actually allow people who are ineligible to vote to then be registered to vote when they get benefits from the state. I'll go to the next slide real quick because it's just really bad. So it would take away the state's ability to redistrict, put it in the hands of federal bureaucrats who are unaccountable to we the people, require states to restore the ability of felons to vote the moment they exit prison, versus having to fulfill all the requirements that the state has put on them, whether it's parole, probation, restitution, etc. This should be something left to the states, not the federal government to decide. Provides a public funding program again for congressional candidates. It forces states to provide drop boxes for absentee ballots without requiring any security protocols, and then turns the Federal Election Commission into a hyper-partisan agency. Just for a little quick background on that, so the FEC is the one that oversees our elections, right? Currently, it's a 6-member board, 3-3, so 3 from each group, each party, right? They want to take it from 6 members to 5. So we all know how that 3-2 would probably work out. So all of this is to solidify their power because the left knows that they are losing on every front with their policy agenda because they were not given a mandate in 2020 and they still don't have one now. The American people aren't buying what the left is selling when it comes to the economy, immigration, our schools, election integrity. They're just not. And the left knows that. So they have to pass this type of policies because that's the only way they can win when they get rid of the security of our elections, which leads into nuking the filibuster. So if you go to saveourelections.com, we have a whole 2-pager on what Majority Leader Schumer is trying to do. I don't know if you saw, so this was actually, earlier, President Biden started this year with a 59% disapproval rating. His disapproval rating just keeps going up day by day on a host of policies. And so because the left has failed to really pass anything from their agenda, they are very serious about, quote unquote, nuking the filibuster. Filibuster, as y'all know, that's the 60-vote threshold to go on to a final vote for a bill, which then has the majority to pass. They're trying to do a carve out for voting rights. Like, we'll just nuke it just for this though, just for this part, which we all know how that would work, right? Like you get the little foot in the door, then the next one. So we've been very much against nuking the filibuster from the beginning. And I'm just gonna give you kind of what's happening right now. So currently, the timeline is, or was, I should say, to bring forth this really bad election bill and bring it forward. And how it works is the House, I think it was today, but I could be wrong because a senator is stuck in Hawaii right now because he has COVID and there's a snowstorm happening and some Democrats want to go to Ukraine. It's a whole mess on the Senate Democrat side, which is great. It's great. We love mess. We love mess on their side. The House has or will be passing this terrible election bill as a message to the Senate. And that's basically a procedural way for the Senate to go immediately into debate. Because there's actually 2 cloture votes. There's the 60-vote threshold to start debate and the 60-vote threshold to end debate. This is one thing at Heritage Action I love is we don't just talk politics and policy, we talk process. Process is very important because if you control the process, you control the actual policy outcome. So the House will send a message bill to the Senate allowing them to bypass that first 60-vote threshold. And then at that point, what will probably happen is Senator Schumer will ask the parliamentarian does this bill, are we able to overcome not use the filibuster on this, have a carve out for it? The parliamentarian, that's the person in the Senate that basically says what's following the rules and what's not following the rules, what you can and cannot do, will likely say, because they've already said it before, no, this does not fall, this falls under the filibuster, you can't not do it. At that point, Senator Schumer will probably say, hey, we're gonna do it anyway, which means Senator McConnell, the minority leader, will have to say, I challenge this to the chair, which then will lead to a vote on do they or do they not have to keep the filibuster. And at that point, we'd expect, based on statements from both Senator Sinema and then even today, Senator Joe Manchin, who have said, no, we are supporting the filibuster, getting rid of it is a terrible idea, would lead to a 52-48 split to uphold the filibuster, and really in that regard, upholding the voice of the American people. The filibuster is the one thing that stands between just a majority wreaking havoc and not having a deliberative body trying to do its best for the American people. So currently, while that was the plan to try to rush through this to have that vote on MLK Day, it looks like that timeline's a bit up in the air. The senator from Hawaii, Melendez, I believe is his name, but it could be wrong on how I'm pronouncing it. So I apologize to the senator from Hawaii. He currently has tested positive for COVID, so he cannot come to the Senate. The Senate does not have absentee voting. So, so he can't be there, as well as there's a snowstorm again coming into DC, which is, like a week or so ago kind of stopped everything from happening. So right now it's a big old question mark if they even get to this vote in time for MLK Day, which they would like to do that. So we will see. But as it stands right now, Senator Sinema from Arizona, Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia have both been very emphatic that they are not going to go along with Chuck Schumer's hyper-partisanship in nuking the filibuster and just ignoring the voice and the will of the American people, which is a good thing. But we have to stay vigilant as conservatives, as activists about what's happening here, because there is intense pressure on our senators to go, to kind of toy with this. Fortunately, Oklahoma, I haven't seen any Oklahoma lawmakers say, yeah, this sounds like a great idea. They're not saying that. We just need to making sure that we are educating people about what the ultimate goal is from the Democrats when they're trying to say, oh, we're just trying to, make it easier to pass policies to deliver for the American people. No, they're trying to deliver their own power hold on the American people, to force down their agenda that no American wants. That's what this is about. It's not about voting rights. It's about solidifying their power for good. So that is what's going on in DC right now. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. There should be on your table a glossary of sorts on critical race theory. So at saveourschools.com, so we had Save Our Elections for our elections. Now we have saveourschools.com. So we have quite a few different sister websites with Heritage Action, partially to help provide information to people about what's going on in their communities and how they can get involved. SaveOurSchools.com is born out of critical race theory. That's the other issue we've been engaging on at a state level and a federal level, having that 1-2 punch, so kind of being on defense in Washington, D.C., but being on offense in the states, is to give parents the resources they need to combat critical race theory that they're seeing in their schools. So again, it's SaveOurElections.com. So what you'll find there beyond just, what is CRT? How do I identify it? There's resources like how to submit a FOIA request, so a Freedom of Information Act request, that is really critical, not just for us to show to our communities what's happening in our schools or if it's happening, but also with your school board members. So in Texas, we've had quite a few fights on critical race theory in our school board races. I don't know if y'all saw it or not up here. So there's a school district down in Southlake, Texas, that's in North Dallas area, where they had been doing last year from their diversity council that proposed to the board something called the Culturally Competent Action Plan, which was just completely flying under the radar, by the way, until a parent actually read it. And it included some crazy things like how there'd be microaggression police. So basically a teacher and a student would both be monitoring for microaggressions. Microaggressions could be verbal or nonverbal. intended or unintended. That was literal language in this plan. So a second grader could just go, oh, and that could be reported as a microaggression. And that would be on their record the rest of their school career. That was in this plan. So parents got involved. They submitted FOIAs to get information about what this plan was and who was voting on it and who was supporting it. And then they got engaged and they flipped their school board. They actually just flipped it for real. They had a special election just this November. One of my Sentinels actually was running in it and he won. And it was crazy. I mean, they had millions of dollars poured into this race from the left to secure this seat, and the Conservatives won. He has to run again now in March because it was a special election, so he's back on the campaign trail. But it's because parents got involved and said, well, like, this is crazy for our kids. This is actually dividing our students. It's dividing our community. It's not bringing unity, and it's not preparing our students for the world, for college, what have you. Like, this is not what we send our students to school for, to be divided by race and said, if you are white, then you're the oppressor, or if you're not white, then you're the oppressed, and that you can't succeed because of the white students in your class. That's not a healthy environment. That's not building a healthy citizenry. So we started Save Our Schools to provide resources to people who are fighting critical race theory, to submit those FOIAs, to also archive data. So if you go on websites and stuff, so some school districts, I mean, so it's kind of funny, but also not. Critical race theory has actually been here longer than we think in our schools. We just didn't see it or notice it because, kind of pre-pandemic, we didn't know what was happening in our schools. We sent our kids to school and trusted they were getting a good education. Like, hey, I went to public school K-8. I can tell you, my parents never checked my homework. They never read my textbooks. I mean, part of it was I was a good student. I like to learn. But there were probably some questionable things that I probably should have brought up to them, like, hey, like, this is kind of weird. But, just the working parent, they're not always, and it's not their fault, they're trusting the school to be actually teaching their children what they need to know, not teaching them to divide themselves based on their gender, based on their race, and then saying you have an internalized character because of these immutable characteristics, which is not the case. So one of the, kind of silver linings from 2020 and beyond is Zoom learning, distance learning, because parents were like, hold up, like, what did you just say to my student? Like, what is going on here? And so when you actually go on a lot of these school websites, a lot of schools already have, whether it's a diversity, equity, inclusion committee, or curriculum, or a kind of cultural competency, or even some districts like Fort Worth School District down in Texas, very honest, a racial equity committee. And they will have resources that are saying, here's what we're doing. And it's very important that as you discover that on your school's websites, you archive that, because oftentimes when a school district or an organization gets in hot water because of something they posted, they'll scrub it from their website and say, oh, no, we didn't do that. So our website, saveourschools.com, has a tutorial about how to archive what you find on these websites. That's very important, because at the end of the day, the school boards are going to be the ones oftentimes to address this issue, and they may not even be aware it's going on. That school district in Southlake, the school board was this close to approving it. Wow. This close. And it's not because they're bad people. They just didn't really read it. They just trusted it going on with their life. It's up to the parents to say, here's what you're voting on right now. Like, we have to, again, hold them accountable and then say, hey, if you're going to be on the school board, make sure you're reading like what's coming in front of you. And so we have to be prepared with those websites, with those FOIAs, to then go to those board members, whether in private or at a public meeting, and say, this is what's in our library, or this was in my son's backpack for homework this week from his teacher. Don't tell me that this is not happening in our schools. You have to have that proof to kind of light that fire under a member who may not be wanting to go, against critical race theory because they're afraid of, what might happen to them with that issue. So critical race theory, real quick, there's no absolute truth. Individuals are either oppressor or oppressed, and America is systematically racist and must be dismantled. We've all heard this. I think you all are pretty well aware. It's been one of the top issues along with election integrity this last year or so. And President Donald Trump, he was trying to address this with his 1776 commission. That was one of the first things President Biden dealt away with, because that's really shows you the priorities of the left and how they want our students taught. So we do have some recommendations for state legislators. And this is at saveourelections.com. Heritage Foundation and Heritage Action, we're in a national coalition with other groups calling on legislators to address this, because there is a legislative component here, and there is model legislation for your legislator on critical race theory at saveourschools.com. And so those recommendations include, again, protecting students and teachers from discrimination, being compelled to hold any view that violates the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and participation in trainings and seminars to promote racially essentialist doctrines and practices. So part of that one means we talk about in our model legislation, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, as well as the Civil Rights Act, is building laws upon already existing laws. It just makes it has a better foundation as a bill text to say we're building on federal law. It makes it harder to challenge. Next thing, citizens can bring a right of action against any public institution engaged in racial discrimination. I'm sure you might have had experience with this. There may be a law in the books, but there's not really a way for you as a citizen to challenge what's going on. You might take it to whoever's supposed to be doing it, but they may address it, or they may just say, man, I'll leave it at my desk and I'll get to it later. Again, that's not to speak ill of any elected official or any person in a position of power to deal with this, but we firmly believe, as we see the divisiveness and just the Marxism within critical race theory, public citizens who are taxpayers, you're the ones funding schools, have a vested interest in what's being taught there. And that relates to all members of the public are given comprehensive access to school curriculum materials. So like I said, yeah, I have no idea. So my kids, they're just in preschool and pre-K right now, but I couldn't honestly tell you what every single book in their classroom is. It's not available to me. With COVID protocols, parents aren't allowed to go inside classrooms often to go take a peek around. And I think our teachers are great. Like, I have had zero issues with my preschool. But again, you never know, because we aren't given access. We don't know what's in these textbooks. Even just trying to find out what's being used in, 8th grade, social studies. Who knows? Not me. And so unless you have a child in the school and they say, hey, what's your textbook? You're not going to know. And so we firmly believe that there should be transparency in our schools in what is being used to educate them. And then also, families should be empowered with the ability to choose a new public or private school for their child, to customize their child's education to customize their child's education with an education savings account. Those are just a few recommendations. Every state's going to be different. Again, this is our website, saveourschools.com. This is here to provide a resource for parents, for students, for teachers, for anyone in education about what they can do to combat critical race theory in their schools, as well as hopefully craft legislation that's going to empower parents and really empower our students to succeed in America. Kind of ending things real quick. I'm just going to address this real quick, because this is hopefully dead, but we'll see. The Build Back Better agenda, otherwise known as Build Back Broke, because it's just the worst. Even the New York Times was honest about what this bill was when it said it was a cradle-to-grave social welfare bill. They were even honest that this was a cradle-to-grave welfare bill. This is cradle-to-grave government coming in, owning every part of your life. So right now it's kind of dead, because Joe Manchin said, I'm not going to vote for this. But he did say back last July that he would kind of do a Build Back Better light. And so while nothing has happened so far, apparently negotiations aren't really happening, but who knows what's going on. These are things that he actually said, in a letter, in an agreement with Majority Leader Schumer, that he would support. Still spend $1.5 trillion that we did not have. Pushes for climate-related spending, and he did not say no to a clean energy standard. Expand green energy tax credits, expand fuel and vehicle tax credits to hydrogen and fuel cell technology, increase job-killing corporate income and capital gains tax rates, as well as a whole hodgepodge of welfare programs. So this is stuff that Joe Manchin said that he would support in a bill. The left and the moderate left are in a fight about how big their big social welfare bill should be. We're going to keep fighting it tooth and nail. Nothing in this should ever be passed. We are already just so much trillions of dollars in debt. We passed so many spending bills in the advent of the COVID pandemic that money still hasn't even been spent from that. So this is not a time to continue investing in ideas and policies that aren't going to benefit the American people. They're actually going to kill their jobs, raise their cost of living even higher, raise inflation, et cetera. So we'll be pushing back against this. The more that this stays dead, the better our chances. So keep calling your lawmakers about this issue. While this is a pretty cut and dry conservative versus liberal issue, we should still always be reminding our lawmakers that, hey, we're still paying attention to this issue. We want to make sure that you are as well, especially as campaign season ramps up. Your lawmakers have a lot on their minds. I do want to say that real quick. Lawmakers have a lot on their minds. They have busy schedules. Our vice president, Heritage Action, Garrett Best, he actually worked on the Hill for over 10 years. And he showed us kind of a mock calendar when he was a legislative director for a lawmaker and in the U.S. House about what their day looked like. And it was broken up into 15-minute increments. So they have very, very busy days as a lawmaker. Now, that's not an excuse to, not do the right thing, but that means that we, as their constituents, as citizens, need to make sure that we're taking responsibility for our country and for a lawmaker and reminding them why we sent them to Washington, D.C., and what we expect of them, and to make sure they know that we are watching them. And that brings me to my final point, Sentinel Nation. So that was us block walking in Florida. We had to wear masks at the time. But once you're all spread out, we weren't wearing masks. But just for the group picture. So we were, like I said, we were block walking for like 5 weeks in Georgia. And the whole impetus of Heritage Action is that the grassroots are really the power in America. It doesn't always feel like it sometimes, but I think we did see that in 2016 with a certain someone who won the presidency, that people said there's no way he could win the presidency. It's because the people spoke up and said this is what we want. So the people do have power when they are organized, when they are coordinated on the issues and in the movement. And that's why Heritage Action exists with our Sentinel program. It's because Sentinels are people who are knowledgeable and take meaningful action in their districts to create that echo chamber around their lawmaker and in their community. Echo chamber just means, like I said, your lawmaker's day is so busy. And that's not an excuse, again, to not do the right thing, but their day, they need help, all right? They need help. They need people saying, we're here to support you in doing the right thing. We want to see you succeed. We want conservative policies to succeed, right? That means we need our lawmakers to succeed at lawmaking. So we need to be there holding them accountable and saying, we're here to support you, but we're also here to make sure that you feel that heat if you start doing the wrong thing. We're not just gonna be cheerleading you on as you don't do anything or pass bad policy. We're gonna hold you accountable to your votes. So these are just kind of different things Sentinels have done. We visit lawmakers' offices, we hold rallies outside their offices, we do call centers, et cetera, with the whole goal that every lawmaker in Congress hears the voice of Sentinels about what we want to see happen for our country and for our communities. So at Sentinel, we have a thing called Know, Grow, Go. That's kind of our slogan. So knowing, it just means knowing the policies, the players, the playing field. That's why we have our Sentinel call every Monday at 4:30 p.m. It's a free call. We call you. We also have it via Zoom, so you can join in on your computer. We do questions on there. Along with our Sentinel call, we have our call notes. That's an email that goes out the next day, so you can just listen to the call, or if you miss it, don't worry. We email you all the information. We also have our website, heritageaction.com, where we have our scorecard. I have your member scores right here. So Kevin Hearn, his current session score is 100%, lifetime score is 98%. That's his DC and office phone numbers. We have that on our website, heritageaction.com as well, where we have call center, so you're able to click take action. There's a call script there for you. There's talking points, background info, social media graphics, anything that you could need to take action. Over here, you have Senator Jim Inhofe. The current session score, 94%, lifetime score, 79%. And then Senator James Langford, current session score, 98%, lifetime score, 82. So real quick, session score, that just means right now, a session is 2 years, all right? So we are in the second year of this session. Once the midterms happen and the new Congress is sworn in, it'll be a brand new session, so that score will reset. The lifetime score is all of their scores in aggregate. So you may say, oh wow, 98%, but lifetime score is 82, lifetime score is 79. You can go to heritageaction.com. You're able to toggle between the congressional sessions as well as look at every bill we've key voted, why we key voted it, and how your lawmaker voted. A couple years ago, Senator James Langsford's score was in the 70s. And I want to also highlight, we are currently Republicans in a minority position. It's easier for your Republican lawmaker, and this is not to question how they voted or why they voted. All right, I don't know their hearts, all right? But it's easier to hide in the minority, right? Majority is where I like to go back. So go look at the 2015, 2016 scores of your lawmakers. That might give you a better picture, or 2016, 2017, better picture of how your lawmaker was voting at the time when it was a Republican majority in Congress. Again, that is not to put motive on your lawmaker, look into their heart, see into my crystal ball. I don't have any of that, all right? The scorecard is simply a tool that we give to Sentinels. You take the information, you look at it, do your own research, ask your congressman about it. But this is our scorecard that we have at heritageaction.com. So knowing the players, the playing field, the process, we have a Sentinel call, our call notes, our website, heritageaction.com. We have a thing called grow. So you know stuff, and we got to grow as activists. You all already doing that. You're here at a meeting. So I think that's honestly crucial for the movement, is to be in community with each other, because I'm a very social person. I cannot do things alone because it just makes me makes me feel sad, right? It just makes me feel sad. Like I'm just doing it all by myself. But in a meeting, in a group, there's power in numbers. That's what we want to have, people calling with the same issue, working together on these issues. So attending meetings with each other, coordinating about how, we're going to be going to the MLK Day parade, so we're going to have our hospitality suite, we're going to do this, that. That is so important in building up our community. Getting to know your elected officials. So I think Congressman Hearn's staff left, but should definitely get to know staffers, get to know officials as you will. It's very just important to do that constantly, so they start putting faces to names and say, hey, this person's a player in my district. I should probably pay attention to what they're saying, because at least from my experience, and there's different data to back this up, but when one person calls an office, especially at a congressional level, to them, one person calling means there's like thousands behind them that think the same thing. So the more of us that are calling and then showing up in person, which is a whole other game changer for them, that makes them know that something important is happening and they need to be able to pay attention and respond to it. And then identify like-minded individuals. You kind of already done that. But there's always more people that we need to bring into our movement. That's why we started our Save Our Elections website, Save Our Schools website. We've had a lot of parents come to our Save Our Schools website because they wouldn't have necessarily gone to heritageaction.com, conservative organization, but they wanted someone that could go and say, hey, I'm seeing this in my school, how do I fight back? And so we bring them in through our Save Our Schools website, and we're able to connect with them and talk more about the policy issues. So being creative about how do we find people that are on our side, but they don't know it yet. So that's kind of the goal there with Grow. But then finally, going. So hosting meetings with your lawmakers, community engagement. So I have Sentinels almost every year, if you aren't one, being a voter registrar. So registering people to vote, having information about Heritage Action Sentinel, pocket constitutions, all that good stuff. Writing letters to the editor. I was just on Tulsa World yesterday. It's kind of looking at, what their kind of letter to the editor section looked like. Because I know that some editorial boards almost never publish conservative positions, but this was literally when they published on the 8th of January. When it comes to bad government, don't forget the Democrats. That was literally a letter to the editor, a conservative viewpoint published in the Tulsa World. So I really do want to encourage letters to the editor. I know you might think, oh, it's a waste of time, media is so lefty, and I agree with you. I agree with you, all right? But letters are like 150, 200 words. I think we all passed basic English in high school. You can probably write that in 10, 15 minutes. I know y'all got opinions, right? Y'all have to have an opinion about something, right? Y'all got an opinion, so write it down. Heritage Action, heritageaction.com. Go to our issue toolkit. We have background info, talking points. We also will try to include sample letters to the editor about here's what you could say, because we need to be educating our community, as well as your lawmakers do pay attention to what is said in the local paper. When they see a conservative viewpoint in their district's paper, that gives them extra fuel when they're in Washington, D.C. to say, no, there's actually people that do agree with me in my district, because I've seen this before. They've used it in committee meetings or used it in press releases at press conferences saying, no, like, look at all these letters to the editor that are coming out in our country, in our districts. And we all know that for every one conservative letter that gets published, there are probably like 50 that didn't. So this is an important tool that we cannot forget. And also, I will say as well, papers can be a little lefty sometimes. I think we all know that, just the media. They want clicks on their website. They want to drive traffic to their website, to their readership. So publishing a conservative letter usually gets those clicks because people are like, oh my gosh, a conservative viewpoint in the newspaper, how dare they? And they go click on it and they go read it. But also, there's people that might agree with you. They're too afraid to speak up. Last year in Texas, I was working with Sentinel in Houston, and we got a border wall letter published in the Houston Chronicle, and they literally kept in the words, we need to build the wall. Now, we thought they would strike that out because editorial boards, when you send a letter, kind of have that authority to do that. They didn't, and we were like, oh my gosh, they actually kept that in there. That's a miracle. This Sentinel had friends of his that he didn't even know were that conservative call him and say, I agree with your letter. Thank you for speaking up about this issue. Because there are people out there who are not, like right here in Tulsa, there are conservatives who are not at this meeting right now. There are people who think that they're by themselves or that I don't really want to speak up, I'm afraid to speak up, I don't know how to speak up. We have to be that beacon, that person stepping up and saying, we're stepping up for you, for our lawmakers, and you can join us. We're here to help you and be together as an army, not as a bunch of individuals, and then we are, but to be together and say we are here fighting for America. And that is what Sentinel is all about, is being together to fight for our country, fight for our principles, fight for our founding, fight for our next generation of Americans. That's why I do what I do. I've been doing this for almost 8 years. And I know I'm not that old, all right? Like, I know how young I am. But I'm already exhausted. Like, there are days that I'm like, why am I even doing this anymore? Congress sucks. Everybody sucks. Like, I'm just done with politicians. But I do it because I have 2 little girls, and I want more kids. I had a wonderful childhood and life in America. But the America that I see now, even as I graduated from high school 10 years ago. I know, I'm not young. But even as in this last 10 years, I'm like, whoa. Like, what is this? Because people are more divided and more hateful than ever. People have forgotten the beauty of our country. And so that is why I get up every day and say, I don't want to leave my children a mountain of debt, government-run healthcare, government-run everything. I want my children to enjoy freedom and liberty to pursue their dream to the best of their ability. And that's why I do it. So all of us need to find our reason about why we do it. No matter how old you are, how young you are, everybody has a part to play in fighting for America and standing up for our values. That is what our founders wanted. That's what they believed, that this country would only survive because of the citizens taking responsibility for their country, not us just saying, hey, we put you in office, we're going to sit back on the couch for the next 2 years, good luck and Godspeed. That's not enough. We have to take ownership for the people that we send to Washington and really to any elected office. So if you want to join Sentinel, it's a completely free program. Again, you get our Sentinel call, our call notes, all of our resources. You get me. I think I'm pretty cool. You get my phone number. I'm only 4 hours south of you, so I hope to come back up here again soon. But seriously, y'all, please join Heritage Action. You will not regret it. There's no time commitment. There's no money commitment involved. This is literally saying, I want to get information about how I can take action that makes a meaningful impact this week, this month, this year. So there should be sign-up cards on your tables. If there's not, please come see my intern. She's colored on half of them, but I'm sure some are still all right. Or you can text the word Sentinel to 51776. That's Sentinel, SENTINEL, to 51776. There's already a few Sentinels in here, so that makes me very, very happy. But again, y'all, my name is Rebekah Warwick. I am your regional coordinator. I'm just based south of here in Mansfield, Texas. That's just right south of Fort Worth, 4 hours away. That's my email. That's my phone number. I also have business cards. I will leave this up so you can take a picture of information. Seriously, I'm available. Rhonda and Lori can both tell you I'm available. this is where the Lord's put me, all right, is to fight for my country in the best way that I can, which is to hold Congress accountable every stinking day. So I invite you to join me in that fight, because this is our country, this is our responsibility. Thank you so much. I'm happy to take questions right now.
Yes, so my question is about Agenda 21 and the United Nations. If you guys are aware of what is happening, and there you've got the Soros, you've got all this massive billionaires. And so I'm just wondering, because to me it seems like no matter what we do at the local level, they have the control, they have the money, they pay all of these nonprofit organizations to come in and create whatever they want to do, their agenda for a one world system.
Yeah, so Heritage is very aware of the various tentacles that can form and have been forming, not just at the federal level, but down to our very local communities. That's why we started our state advocacy. We are in coalition with so many different groups at the federal and state and local levels about how do we push back against the left, because yes, the left has money. I'm not going to deny that. But the people can overcome that when they are coordinated and when they are organized on the issue, educating our lawmaker, and then, Heritage Action, I'm not here to say you should vote for so-and-so or not vote for so-and-so or, replace so-and-so, but y'all can talk about, okay, is this person actually representing us, or are they not? Are they following somebody else's agenda, somebody else's vision, and not doing what we sent them there to do, and then making an action plan to overcome that the way that you choose, whether it's accountability just as a one-on-one or accountability at the ballot box. But we are very aware. If you go to heritage.org, you can go to the search engine, you can look up our various research on those issues. We've done quite a few videos about George Soros and his deep pockets, where he's, for example, there's a recent video about how he's been funding those DAs that aren't prosecuting the people that have been rioting and burning our cities. Or in areas that, hey, we're not going to actually charge anybody if they steal, as long as it's under $1,000, we're not going to charge them. We've been researching and talking about why this is detrimental to civil society, to our communities, and trying to educate people on that. But again, that all starts with us. We are here to be a resource. I am not going to save you, all right? I'm here to be with you, partner with you, work with you. But I don't have all the answers, and I can't do all the work. That's why I'm here. That's why Rhonda's here. Rhonda cannot do all of the work. All right? Each of us has a role to play, whether it's a local level, state level, federal level, what have you. But Heritage Action Sentinel, even though we're federally focused with some state issue stuff, all of those skills we talk about, whether it's letter to the editors or organizing meetings, etc., can be applied to anything you do in your grassroots activism. Are there any other questions, or we need to cut off time? All right, well, I have any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is there a heritage plan to get the January 6th political prisoners out of jail? They've been held without charges for a year, and the few that have actually been tried have been tried on minor trespassing charges, nothing to do with insurrection. It's blatantly illegal, and I've emailed our senators and representatives until I feel like every time my message comes through, they roll their eyes, because at some point it's like, what's the point?
No, I hear what you're saying. So again, we firmly believe that this is a sham process, because they're only going after one group of people because of their political beliefs, while other people are released to riot and do other things. So that's not a policy question per se. So we focus on federal and state policies. There are groups that are very much working in that arena. And again, so like I said, we don't do everything, and not everybody should do everything, because if you do everything all the time, you're going to drop some balls and not be as good. All right, so at Heritage Action, we are focused on making sure people are aware that this is a sham process, what's going on, that this is not about protecting American democracy. This is about the left promoting their agenda and shoving it down the American people's throat because they're not winning on anything because the American people don't like what the left is doing. Full stop. They do not like it. I think if there's no other questions, that one has to go potty. So I'm really sorry. I will be here though to hang out, but I just really don't want her to have an accident on Lori. So yeah.
Thank you, Rebekah. You know, I got introduced to Heritage and Heritage Action. It's probably been at least 10 years now, probably even 12. In 2016, I was they gave me the Sentinel Wall. I don't know. It's an award. A Wall of Honor award, which was quite an honor. I got that back in 2016. But Heritage is a great resource for us, especially when it comes to holding our elected officials accountable. I can remember when I first got introduced to Heritage and the scorecard. They were doing their scorecard, and I went to a congressman's. I drove down to another city, and I went to a congressman's town hall, and I asked him about his scorecard, and then he berated me for a while. And then I stood up, and I was still standing, and I just asked him. I said, "So, can you explain your score?" You know, and so it's a great tool. And she's right. When we're in the minority, our guys look really, really good because they're voting against all the stuff that the left is trying to push through. And I think we can all agree the left has quit hiding. They're crazy. It's out in the open. Everything, you can see what they're doing. They're telling you exactly what their agenda is. And so Heritage is a great resource for us. I did want to touch on a few things real quick. I'm sorry I wasn't here when we first started. I went and welcomed the new satellite club for the Republican Women's Club, and that just started in the Collinsville area. So I wanted to go and tell them welcome and thank you for doing this. Tulsa has more conservative clubs and organizations than any other county in the state. And so, we have it's really a neat thing that we've got. So I had a campaign manager or a campaign person call me today and wanted to know when did we, and this is me putting on my GOP hat. Sorry about that. I need to tell you what I'm doing. Calling me and asking me when do we have our meetings? And I said, well, we don't really have meetings, but we have a ton of groups and organizations that we get behind and we support. And so I would encourage everyone to find out about the different groups, find one that you like, find 2 or 3 that you like. I'll probably be at all of them. Find something. There's something for everybody to get connected. So whether it's a morning meeting that you like or an afternoon meeting, or if you prefer evening meetings, we've got them all. So I wanted to make you aware of that. Poll workers. And Rebekah had mentioned poll workers, that one of the most important things that you can do to preserve the integrity of our elections is to work the polls, to be the eyes and ears for the people, for those of us that aren't there, so that we know what's going on in the polling locations. Now, in taking people to tour the election board, we were informed that Republicans are really lacking in volunteering for these positions. Now, with the redistricting, which won't go in effect until later this year, we went from 262 precincts to 239. That'll make things a little bit easier. But we have to have a Republican and a Democrat at every polling place, at least one of each. And then the third person can be any of them. So if you're so inclined, it will take up your whole day. You will go for training, but you do get a small paycheck for your time. Become a poll worker. So contact the election board, the Tulsa County Election Board. I meant to bring some flyers with me. But contact the Tulsa County Election Board and tell them that you're interested in being a poll worker, because we really need poll workers in Tulsa County. What else do I have in here? Okay, the candidates. I see we have, you want to start over here?
Me?
Yeah, you. I thought didn't you get missed?
Yeah, she didn't get me. Okay. For you that don't know me, I'm the past chairman. I trained Rhonda. I'm Rhonda's float driver, also in parades. And I'm Bob Jack. And a couple of weeks ago, I was going to run for another position, and then something happened, and a bunch of events happened. And I have now decided to run as the candidate for County Commissioner District 3, which is in South Tulsa. There are 3 commissioners in the county, and 2 of us are up for election, the one up in the north and the one in the south. So I'm going to be running. There's one other person that's announced. That election's in June of this year, so we've got a little bit of time. But I just wanted everyone to know that I've decided to run for that position. As you know, the county commissioners are kind of, probably most people don't know what they do, but if you start thinking about it, it really is just roads and bridges, and it's buildings, and it's parks, and it's jails, and it's fairgrounds. So there's a lot of things that a county commissioner does and oversees. He doesn't make laws. We don't pass ordinances. None of that happens. It's just facilitating those things. And it's about a $95 million budget for Tulsa County. Now, in the last couple of years, they've gotten a lot of federal money, and they've been working through that. So, and that'll continue on for a little bit of time yet. But a county commissioner is really important, because a good portion of this county, 600 miles of roads and over almost 200 bridges are under the county rule. So it's important you get good. And my business experience as a construction guy, really, and running large construction companies, really, it really suits me well for this position. So I just want to tell you I'm in the game, and I would appreciate your support.
All right, thank you, Bob. All right, Stan.
I'm Stan Stevens. I'm running for state representative, District 79. Mainly tonight, I think I just want to encourage you to get out and vote in the school board elections. Our elections will come later. We're electing school board members at about 7% turnout. Last June, after school was out, we passed a $414 million school bond with about 7%. About 11,000 people passed that bond, and Deborah Gist thought that was a overwhelming victory. So one of the items on my agenda is to try to change elections for school boards and city councils to the regular cycle of the June primaries and the November general. Others have tried that. There's people down there going to try that this time. They haven't been successful yet. I may not be either, but that is something I want to try very hard to get done, and turn schools back over to parents and back to local control.
Thank you, Stan. All right, Ms. Junigrid.
I was introduced earlier on, but I will introduce myself again. Junegrid Baker for TPS District number 7. Even if you may not be in my district, if you're not sure I have a map here, you can see me after. Please grab a flyer and pass the word around. Now is the time for change. We are going back to the Constitution. We are doing things that how they were meant to be done, how they were supposed to be done. We want our students to rise and shine again and be happy to come to school. We want to decrease that rate of absenteeism in schools. We want them to come to school and learn the correct things, learn the correct principles, learn about sex education in the right way, not in pornography, not in the way of the world, but we want them to learn to abstain from sexual involvement, sanctity, wait until till they're married. We don't want condoms coming into school. We don't want protection coming into schools. We want them to wait for marriage. We taught the right way. So we want to bring prayer back in school. That's the basics. That's the fundamental. If it worked for our founding fathers, it will work for us today. So come on, vote for June Rebekah, TPS District number 7. Pass the word around. Now is the time for change. And I have been mandated to run as a candidate for this position. It's not my doing. I've been mandated by the I am that I am to run for this position. Now is the time for change. Vote for June Rebekah.
Ma'am. All right, Miss Alina.
Thank you. My name's Elena Ashley, and I'm running for Tulsa School Board as well, District 4. And District 4 is on the east side, so near East Central. And you know, everything that June Grid has said is definitely in all of our hearts, as I think we agree, that we want a moral school. We want children to be morally trained. We want them to be trained by their parents. We want parents to be able to be brought into the schools, because children actually learn better and excel when their parents are involved. We do want the fundamental education. We want reading, we want writing, we want arithmetic, and we don't want the social indoctrination, the SEL and the CRT. We want also to make sure that our monies, our tax monies, are following our students. We want to know where the money goes. We want to know what books are being brought into the school. We want to know how the teachers are having their background investigations. For instance, the recent teacher that had a background investigation, yet she'd been molesting people in a previous school. We want accountability. We want transparency in our schools. Thank you. I'm Elena Ashley, District 4. I have a big map back there. Anything on the east of Garnett, consider it District 4. God bless you.
Her election is April the 5th because she only has it's just her and the incumbent. And so it goes straight to the general election, which is April the 5th. So the other elections have more than one. So there's a primary, and that primary is February the 8th. What else? Oh, June Gridman and Elena mentioned the libraries. I don't know, have you guys paid attention to what's going on in Bristow with the books? And it's not just Bristow. Bristow's the one that's really bringing it out right now. But there are pornographic books that are being found in our school libraries that our children have access to at all ages. And when I say pornographic, I had someone in my office today showing me what some of the excerpts out of these books were, and I was embarrassed. And when they asked me if I wanted copies of it, I said, no, no, I don't. And so there's a fight for our kids, and they're fighting hard. They're fighting hard to take control of our children and to take control away from the parents. And if we don't fight now, we've lost it. We've lost it, because I'm gonna tell you, if you're not willing to defend freedom, you don't deserve it. We're in war right now. And it's time that we get off our fannies, we get out there, we start getting good candidates elected, we start changing this from the ground up. And that starts with our school boards and our city councils. If we don't do it in 2022, we're pretty much screwed. Because in my opinion, 2022 is just as important a year as 1776 was to us. This is the year that tells us the question that Benjamin Franklin, or the comment that he made. You have a republic if you can keep it. This is the year we determine whether or not we're able to keep our republic. So find an organization, find a group, get involved, get active, help with these campaigns. Listen, look at these districts. If you know people in these districts, contact them and say, there's an election on such and such date, whether it's April 5th for Elena or February 8th for June Grid. You tell them that you need them to get out and vote. Listen, in District 7, the last election was in 2014 because the woman ran unopposed. Okay? 2014, do you know that less than 1,000 people determined that? There's 22,000 voters in District 7. 1,000 people decided who was going to represent them on the school board, and that's wrong. And if we can't get out and we can't beat those numbers and we can't get people fired up, if not for CRT, then for this pornography that they've got in the schools, I mean, pick an argument. Just pick one. The schools are being closed. They're trying to force mask mandates on our children again. The vaccinations, they're wanting our children to be vaccinated. If we don't fight now, all that we gained for so long is going to be lost, and it's us.
I think one reason for low voter turnout is half the time we don't even know they're having an election.
Well, as your DOP chairman, I'm telling you, that's gonna be different. We're getting out on the airwaves, and we're gonna let people know there's an election coming up. You need to get out. We're gonna use text messaging to tell them to get out. We're gonna use robocalls. We're gonna send mailers. We're gonna campaign to get these school board seats back.
Two questions. Mr. Stevens, who has your seat currently?
Melissa Provenzano has his seat.
Okay, she just has to run it yet. Okay, why aren't they having these school board things on the same day, the elections? Why are they?
They're okay because the way it's set up with the legislature this year, once again, is going to work, and they're probably going to be successful this year because they're getting so much pushback from a lot of us. Is that they're going to move to make the school board and city council elections align with our primary and general elections, because this is foolishness. We don't think about the first week in December about filing for office. We've just finished Thanksgiving. We're working our way into Christmas. Nobody's thinking about that. And come, like I told you guys before, come the middle of February, we're not thinking about voting. We're thinking about chocolate and going out to eat and wine and stuff like that. Yes, sir.
We also need to push to see that they get back to partisan political elections. That's right.
Well, here's the thing, and I agree, but here's the thing. It's a nonpartisan race. However, as your chairman, I'm involved. And I'm letting people know who the Republicans are, because that's what happens, is that people just elect you because maybe you were really nice on the doorstep or you sent them a pretty flyer. But no, we're going to let them know that we're Republicans. So that, and the reason that I can get involved as the party chair is because they're nonpartisan elections. If it was a partisan election, I could not get involved in it until after the primary. So this is actually a blessing in disguise.
We're looking for volunteers.
Okay. All the candidates are looking for volunteers. Yes, sir.
What Tulsa's pretty much run by all these secretive appointed committees. When can is there a way we can force them to start holding actual in-person meetings at times of day when citizens could actually show up?
You can't make them do anything any more than they can pretty much make you do anything. Just as they all make their own rules. So it's whoever's in charge gets to make the rules. He who has the gold makes the rules. So whoever's in charge. So in our city council, we've got 6 Democrats and 3 Republicans. So the Democrats are going to make the rules. They're going to determine what gets on the agenda and how they're going to operate. Same thing with the House of Representatives in Oklahoma City and the Senate. They have their own set of rules. They make their rules that they abide by. They have to vote on them. So, you know, it's difficult to make them do anything.
Well, for instance, the Tulsa City County Library Commission meets at lunchtime on weekdays. Nobody's going to show up to that.
Right.
They can't.
We're working, right. No, I understand, and I feel your frustration, but until we can start getting people on the board that are gonna change the rules, then we have to follow the rules that they make. Anybody else?
Hey, Rhonda, county commissioner can change that rule.
Oh, county commissioner can change that rule, vote Bob Jack.
Because the county commission's overwatch the library.
So, yeah. So maybe we need to find out what all kind of stuff, magic powers you might get.
I got a lot of magic powers.
So, hey, what do you guys think about coming back to Spirit Life? I'm excited. Yes. Amen. So, we'll meet again next month, the second Tuesday of next month, or second Thursday.
February 10th.
Thank you. February 10th, right before Valentine's Day, just after the election. Let's hope we have something to celebrate on February the 10th, because we got our work cut out. Listen, find a candidate, get behind them. They need money. They need manpower. We've only got 3.5 weeks left till February the 8th. Let's get out there and let's get it done. Yes, Larry.
By the way, if anyone knows anyone who needs to register to vote or re-register because they moved, tomorrow is the deadline.
Yes.
To register to vote for the February 8th election. And, you have to drive it down there, but get it to Rhonda, so get it to somebody, or drive it down to town forum, but it's gotta be there tomorrow.
Yes. And if absentee ballots. If you know of anyone that wants an absentee ballot, you have until January the 24th to request one. And you can do that by going to okvoterportal.okelections.us. And you can change your voter. You can change your voter, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you can change your location. You can make any changes to an existing registration. You cannot register online. It has to be printed out. They have to get a hard copy of it. Does anybody have any other questions?
Rhonda, I recommend everybody go to the voter portal and sign up for absentee ballots for the entire year. That way you get one whether you get one, and then if you don't use it, fine, you go vote in person. You can do that, but if you can't, at least you've got a ballot in your hands.
That's not a bad idea.
So I always, because I'm on the election board also, so I can't do that on election days, but.
So it's very easy, and he's just as he said, if you prefer going in person and you've already received your absentee ballot, as long as you haven't cast that absentee ballot, you can show up at the election at your precinct and you can vote. You'll have to sign stating that you did not use your absentee ballot, but other than that, you can go ahead and you can do that. So because with everything as crazy as it is, if let's say we got sick and all of a sudden we can't make it to the election board or to the precinct, you want to be able to have a backup. You want to know that your vote got counted. Yes. Well, if you request you can request it for all elections for this year. And then next year you would have to go back and redo it. But yes, you can go on, you can do it either one or you can do it for the whole year. So, and there's going to be quite a few elections this year, people. We've got, also on the ballot on February 8th is the PSO franchise. Okay, so what this is, let me just break it down real short for you. It's a monopoly. And so what they're asking you is to vote to keep the monopoly so that they can continue to charge the rates that they want to and get away with it. And, they are under some authority, but it never costs them anything to do business, does it, George?
They control 2 of the 3 commissioners that govern the electric and natural gas always.
Right.
They have staggered 6-year terms. It's the only state office with a 6-year term.
Right.
And they stagger it so they always
Always have
2
somebody.
out of 3.
Yeah. So, I'm just going to tell you, I think I'll vote no, just to, irritate them a little bit. But feel free to do what you want, but it just means that if you vote yes and it passes, which more than likely it's going to pass, it just means that PSO is our monopoly electrical provider for the next 15 years. So many of us aren't going to be able to vote on it next go-round.
It's not even based in Oklahoma anymore. It's owned by American Electric.
Right. So if we don't have anything else, don't forget to go to the Save Our Schools, Save Our Elections. They're feeding us. They give us the resources that we need to be able to engage the other side and to tell everybody exactly where we stand. So I'll see you guys next month. You guys have a great evening. Drive safe. And I think it might snow this weekend. I don't know.